Guys, let's get 800 likes and I will release a new part. For a hitman, it's quite a long stay in Chengdu, but the wine is always nice. A charming beauty approaches the guy. She greets him, asking if he's the only one here. The brunette asks if they know each other. The girl says that she works as a waitress, so she saw him come here for a drink the other day. She evaluates the guy by his accent, realizing that he is a local, and then asks if he likes to drink. The guy also notices that the wine here is wonderful. A representative of the fair sex decides to continue the conversation. She wonders how he ended up in Chengdu. The brunette wants to tell the girl everything that he thinks about her, but a hand falls on his shoulder. Several bald men appear from behind, and their leader claims that this place is occupied. The hero does not understand what is being said. The man asks the guy to step aside so that he can sit down. He notices that he's been sitting here since he came in. The bald man clarifies, really all the time. He claims that all 5 days. At the same time, the guy drinks a glass of chilled alcohol. They ask him if he's looking for death, because they've been here for 5 years. They chase the guy away, and if he doesn't leave, he risks getting burned. One of the thugs grabs the handle of his knife and holds it to the man's throat. The waitress stiffens at what's happening. The brunette scratches the back of his head, telling him not to be so serious. He gets to his feet, giving up his seat and saying goodbye to the girl. The bartender also notes that this is a well-mannered boy. A representative of the fair sex calls him a simple coward, and then gets up from her seat, intending to go about her business, but the bald man grabs her hand. He does not understand where the beauty is going, and why she leaves them as soon as they come. The girl pulls her hand away, begging for forgiveness, and saying that she has a job waiting for her. This only turns the bandit on even more. He notices that when this gigolo was sitting here, she didn't have anything to do, and she just chatted with him, and now it's their turn. One of the guys notices that she wants to offend them with her act. The waitress clarifies what they want. The man asks her not to worry, saying that he is not a bad guy, but just wants to offer her a glass of wine. He opens the bottle and pours out the alcohol, handing it to the girl. The guys exchange expectant glances. Their leader suggests that she drink it as a sign of respect for his feelings. At least a sip or she will offend him. The other guys in the gang put her up to it. One says it's a very good red wine. Another notes that they will immediately leave as soon as she has a drink. The waitress drains her glass in one gulp, then asks them to leave, but her head starts to hurt abruptly. The glass shatters on the floor, and the boys grin contentedly. She realized late that she had made a fatal mistake. At the same time, the brunette is drinking at a table. He notices that 4 men are dragging the same girl on their backs. One of them says that he will help her have fun. Another notes that she has a small waist. The guy knows they're a bunch of fucking garbage. They retreat into a dark alley. The bandit notes that such a hot girl is just a match for the big boss. The boss calls them stupid idiots, because this girl is prettier than the previous one. He puts her on the ground, offering to have fun. The guys start groping her in all places. One of them notices that her skin is very smooth to the touch. Then another man comes into the alley and tells them to calm down. This someone turns out to be a hero. The baldies recognize that recent gigolo. He pisses them off. The brunette also suggests that the cowards go home. Their leader steps forward, noticing the guy's terrible style. At first, he assumes that the guy is an ordinary student, and then claims that he is an illegitimate bastard. The hero also has a strange bag in his hands, which rapists pay attention to. The guy comes closer to the bandits, whose leader can't stand it. He grabs a knife and strikes directly, wanting to kill him today. The dark-haired man dives under the enemy's blow, while simultaneously pulling out his knife with a deft movement. He instantly strikes back, which catches up with his target. Then he tosses the bag aside, because he has another knife in his other hand. The guy gets surrounded by bald men, but he quickly and confidently deals each of them a wound. When a guy finishes up with a bunch of scumbags, he says his name is Don and he's straight, so he hates assholes calling him a motherfucker. After a while, the waitress wakes up in the hospital. She doesn't understand why she's here. The nurse explains that her boyfriend brought her here. The girl immediately becomes interested in where he is and what he looked like. The nurse explains that the guy left, and he was very beautiful and positive in himself. The guy opens his eyes amid the jungle-like vegetation. A drop of water on his cheek wakes him up. He snaps back to consciousness, feeling like he's naked. Don tries to figure out what happened and how he ended up in the woods. He immediately grabs his head, because it is splitting. He remembers being at the Chengdu hotel, but he doesn't know where he is now. More importantly, where are his clothes and knife? He curses, not understanding how it happened. The brunette quickly deduces that it's definitely not Chengdu. It is located in some completely different place. Don speculates that he may have been dropped off by helicopter, but this is not the case. It doesn't matter now. The priority goal is to get out of this place. Then you can find the main instigator of this. With such thoughts, the hero ties himself with vines to close his intimate place and feel more comfortable. He starts moving forward through the dense undergrowth. The guy realizes that getting out will not be so easy because the forest is quite dense. But the main problem is that he cannot feel a single soul, and from this silence he has a chill running through his body. Then he notices a strange trail in the grass. He quickly concludes that such footprints belong to an animal. In the next instant, a loud growl comes from the thicket. Dawn breaks the distance with a somersault, and the beast comes out of the thicket. It's a huge bear. The brunette understands that it has monstrous strength and speed. Dawn had already made a spear out of wood. He is sure that he will have enough strength for this monster. The bear attacks, and the hero goes to the side, striking with a spear. Realizing that the attack was unsuccessful, he prepares for the second round, realizing that it is worth speeding up. The bear attacks him with a roar of rage. The guy jumps out of the way of a paw strike. The brunette begins to run away from the monster, but he is not afraid of it. His idea is to let the monster chase after him, then use the speed of the beast against him to increase the power of his blow. Choosing the perfect moment, the brunette jumps up a tree, then attacks the bear in response. A blow to the monster's face causes it to fall unconscious, but Dawn doesn't have time to relax. He looks back and sees that several four-legged monsters that look like hyenas, but have red pigmentation, have appeared on the carcass of the defeated enemy. The guy understands that the only thing he can do in this situation is to run. He breaks into a run, trying to get away from the monsters. Because of the dense forest, he doesn't notice that he's flying off a cliff. Dawn skillfully groups himself in the air, falling into the water. The boy swims ashore, trying to catch his breath, but a man in armor flies out of the reeds. He falls into the water with an arrow in his back. The hero pulls the wounded man out of the water, then carefully assesses the situation, looking out of the reeds. Chapter 1-3. Dawn is startled by what he sees. Men in armor fight to the death. He understands that this is not like some kind of casting in a movie. Several arrows fly towards him because there are soldiers in front of him. The brunette grabs them with his bare hands. He even wonders what happened after all, because it's all very strange. Everything looks so realistic. As he gets closer, he realizes that people are really dead. He touches the wound of one of the soldiers. There are a number of factors forming in his mind that make him believe that he is on the battlefield. The guy realizes that this is a bad sign. He drags the carcass of the deceased into the bushes, and then comes out in his armor. Dawn notices that she's sitting perfectly still, but he needs to get out of here first, and then he can figure out what to do next. Then an enemy soldier on horseback attacks the hero with a spear from the back. He realizes that he has lost his guard, but the man with the beard pulls him out from under the blow. He says something to him, but Dawn doesn't understand. Enemies are talking in a language unknown to the guy, but the latter does not intend to sit on the sidelines, because since his life was saved, he must repay in kind. The rider snaps at Dawn while the old man shouts something, probably trying to talk the guy out of something stupid. The guy jumps out of the way at the last moment. Both men grin, thinking they've already won, but a stab wound opens on the rider's head and he falls off the rope to the ground while Dawn stands unharmed. The battle stops. Soldiers in black begin to speak loudly, raising their morale. Enemies also desperately attack the hero, because he most likely killed the commander. The brunette confidently handles the spear, repelling the attacks of the crowd. The men in white armor stop their onslaught, not understanding how this is possible. None of them died, but many were badly wounded. Dawn also raises the spear above the ground, and then breaks it in two parts. The real battle begins. The hero cuts his way forward, attacking several opponents at once. He uses a stick and half a spear in battle. Obviously, his style is based on two swords or knives. But even with such things, he is adept at dealing with enemies. A gray-haired old man shouts something to the hero, but he does not understand it, so the peasant has to put himself under attack. Dawn doesn't kill him, surprised by this development. The man grabs the guy's shoulder and says something. The brunette doesn't understand what I'm talking about. Then the old man explains on his fingers that he wants to retreat. There is a reason, and the man points a finger at her. A huge enemy army is moving through the canyon. Dawn realizes that this is getting dangerous. He curses, because he doesn't understand where so many enemies came from. The hero starts running away with everyone else. He sees that not everyone will be able to leave the battlefield. He realizes that these guys are even more violent than he is. The brunette tries to figure out the reason why he got involved in this fight in the first place, but it doesn't matter right now. There are only a few thousand soldiers on the Allied side, when the enemy has at least 10 and probably even more, so we must retreat. Seeing that the old man who saved his life is exhausted and unable to run on his own, Dawn scoops him up onto his shoulders, mentally noting that they should try to disappear as quickly as possible. The brunette understands that if they delay, they will surely die. The man says something, presumably asking him to leave. Dawn is surprised to find a dead end. The realization that things are getting worse does not please the hero. It turns in the direction of the enemies. Their leader stepped forward. He said something, after which a volley of arrows was sent towards the Allied army. There are too many arrows, so Dawn can't protect everyone. Several hundred soldiers were killed at once. He gets an idea of how to get out of this situation. He looks back, but the old man is already dead. An arrow stabs him in the shoulder, bringing him to his senses. He pulls it out abruptly, then makes a quick dash for cover. He's going to sit here and come out when everyone's gone. The soldiers also filled up the entrance to the shelter with carcasses. But everything is not so simple, because the enemy leader took out a torch, apparently intending to set fire to all the corpses of the enemy, so that there are no survivors. Don coughs up blood. He managed to get a bandage from somewhere and bind up his injured arm. At the same time, a fire breaks out outside. The guy wonders if he's going to die here. This causes him to laugh hysterically, which turns into a cough. He begins to think that this is how God punishes him for all those murders and his cruelty. After that, the hero declares that all this is funny, starting to laugh. At the same time, a bone hand appears from the ground. The hero's pupils narrow to the size of a needle when he sees a hand. After a couple of seconds, a full-fledged skeleton climbs out of the ground. The brunette doesn't understand what this nonsense is, and where this skeleton came from in the first place. When the skeleton is fully revealed, Don realizes that it is most likely a ghost, because it is surrounded by an evil scarlet aura. The dead man looks directly at the hero, and the hero doesn't even know what to say. When the ghost starts walking towards him, the dark-haired man greets him, then asks him not to go near, warning that he has put a cloud on people like him. Then he asks why he got out in the first place. The skeleton pulls its hand towards the other person, opening its jaw, in which a strange red ball appears. The dark-haired man doesn't understand what's going on here at all, and then all his vision is blurred by white light. It turns out to be completely naked in a white space. His name is Yonglai. It just so happened that he became a dark spirit. One day, he fell in love with a woman named Shujin. He would do anything for her, even give up your life. But later, he had to fight 5 other masters for it in Xianying Valley. This could be called a battle between the masters of light and darkness. The result was only a sea of blood spilled for nothing. He had never asked her to be grateful to him, but what had happened had turned his mind upside down. She had betrayed him in their promise to love each other forever. She asked Zion Shenjai to finish him off when he was already mortally wounded. As he bled, he screamed her name with tears in his eyes. He didn't want to believe what was happening, reaching for her like the last ray of light. He would never forget how that Zion Shenji had laughed when he was dying, and how their bond with Shujin had been shattered when the enemy had kissed her. The hero woke up in the real world. He got to his feet, feeling the energy seep into his body. He understands that this power should have been transferred to the one whose blood will be spilled in this place. Don realizes that he must now learn Yonglai's power and memories before becoming a master of the dark arts. The brunette is a little sorry that his halo was already depleted, which is why the guy managed to absorb only a little, but Don is not upset because it played into his hands in his position. The guy climbs out of his hiding place, where there is a pile of burnt corpses. He's going to go after Shujin. He was very lucky, because thanks to Yonglai's spirit, his wounds were completely healed. The hero admits that this spirit is still amazing, because his wounds are not only completely healed, but he also feels much better. The body began to feel very light. After entering the battlefield, he started walking over the corpses of his comrades. Don doesn't understand what they've done. He wants to cut them up, but he can't understand why he feels compassion for these people. The answer is found quickly. It's in the spirit of Yonglai. The brunette realizes that sharing a body with such an annoying spirit will be problematic, because he is too soft-hearted. The spirit decides to get out of here quickly and find Shujin. The hero also asks for forgiveness from him, believing that first they need to avenge their soldiers. It turns out that Dong is located in Haoshan. The capital is Shangjin, founded by Yunjin. Haoshan includes 9 kingdoms. Recently, ordinary landlords have increased their influence so much that they have become the equal of even the most royal nobility, so now there is a sense of tension between them. The landlords could have tried to overthrow the real power, but so far they didn't dare because of fear of the kingdom's strength. The hero is located in Feng, the birthplace of Yonglai. Dong gets to the next battle, which is more like a fight. He recognizes the Ninggi warriors. He is happy about it, because now he can repay them for everything. The guy notes that there is more 19 than he expected. A few hundred, at least, but a few hundred is nothing to him. Then a voice from the back turns to the hero, clarifying whether he is going to defeat the whole pack alone. He looks around, asking if he's from Feng. The unknown person notices that if he were not from Feng, then he would already be a corpse. Don also says that the young man is not a mistake, because all this time I was watching him and he did not notice. It is for this reason that the hero wonders why he did not deal with their enemies, since he is so capable. The interlocutor confesses that he has been sitting here all the time, because without spiritual martial arts there is nothing to catch, only to die in vain. Mentally, the hero notices that he thought that the opponent was a martial artist. Don snatches the spear from the other person, claiming that his companions are fighting on the battlefield, and he is here to cool off, sitting on the spot and watching. The guy calls him a pathetic coward. Tom doesn't like this, so he notices that there are still a lot of enemies left. While they have more than 20 people, and only a few of those who can still fight. The hero grins at this, and then breaks into battle. The other person asks him to think better of it and stop. One of the allies was surrounded on both sides. While he was holding off one enemy's onslaught, the other was about to stab him in the back. Don stops him with one quick and precise punch, punching him in the chest. The opponents quickly notice the appearance of a new soldier in the ranks of the unfriendly army. One of them offers to throw all of them at him at once, but it doesn't really help. The hero confidently holds the blow, killing several people with each swing of the spear. At the same time, the allies rejoice, believing that they are saved. Don asks them to go ahead, assuring them that he will cover their retreat. Meanwhile, the guy from the bushes is amazed at what is happening. Everyone praises Don, calling him powerful. When the survivors escape, the hero notes that now there is a place to turn around. He throws his weapon at the feet of his enemies, thereby showing that he will fight with his bare hands. Those who understand that it was a very arrogant act. A soldier with an incredible mass and height comes forward. He's twice the guy's height and weighs 5 times as much. He declares that he will fight Don. The brunette just smiles at that. Such actions make the bully angry, and he shouts that he will cut the guy in half. He raises his axe over his head with one hand, and Don notices that his opponent is acting too thoughtlessly. Dark energy begins to spread across the hero's arm. At the last moment, the hero moves away from the enemy's blow, declaring that his mistake is a great pity. The guy's hand is on the helmet of the opponent in an instant, who immediately starts begging to be released. In a few seconds, the entire body of the bully is engulfed in dark fire, and Don himself demands that they burn to ashes. The soldiers are afraid to approach this madman, and the sloth from the bushes is amazed that his interlocutor has a dark fire. In a short period of time, Bigman's entire body disappears, turning into energy. All that remains is the armor. Don declares that none of them will leave here alive today. The fighters don't know if they're facing a human or a monster. This causes laughter from the hero, who emphasizes that now each of them will share the fate of this poor guy. After these words, the brunette breaks into a crowd of enemies. Some do not have time to react to his attacks, but some still manage to follow the guy's movements. But this is not enough, because Don easily avoids all their attacks, and his touches dry up the soldiers. In a few minutes, only their armor remains from the enemies. Dong thanks Yang Lai, because it's quite a useful ability, but it's just tiring to accumulate energy. This dark fire is one of the skills of the masters of the dark arts. Don realizes that he's not as useless as he thought. A pathetic coward comes out of the bushes, claiming that the guy is a master of the dark art. The hero is surprised that this person turned to him again. The latter assures that Tom should not worry, because he will not tell anyone. Don decides to clarify whether the other person can control his fire or has just seen it before. The guy admits that he can't do anything like this, but he's read a lot of books and knows astronomy and geography, and he also knows it all from books about dark martial arts. The hero also says that he is sure that the guy will inform the others, so he will have to kill him, because only the dead man will not tell anyone anything. The boy crosses his hands, saying that there is no way, and that he can't kill him because he will lose a lot. Don even wonders what he's going to lose. The other person says that he is so well read that no one can tell him more than he can, so he should go with a dark martial artist and help him with everything. His name is Eugene. Don settles into a sitting position, noting that for the last few minutes he's been thinking about going back in time. The guy doesn't understand what it's like to go back in time. The interlocutor explains to him that this is when a person moves back from their actual time, but this does not reach the interlocutor. Dark martial arts are divided into 2 schools, internal and external. The teaching of the dark art and the light art do not have any special differences. The strengthening of Reiki depends on the students themselves. They differ only in their skills and abilities. However, in the inner school of the dark arts, the student cannot strengthen his Reiki by himself. In order to accumulate Reiki, the student must constantly fight, killing their enemies with dark fire. Dark fire is the foundation of the inner school. It is also the most difficult skill. At the very beginning, a disciple can be killed by their own dark fire, which is why there are so few of them right now followers of the dark school. Because of this, all dark arts experience rejection and pressure from other schools. Therefore, students of the dark martial art are treated as enemies. Under such pressure, those who have ever wanted to practice this art have to give up after combining. Yang Pai Tenjin has a small supply of Reiki, so he needs to replenish it. The enemies that appear in front of them are the best way to do this, but he doesn't want to give himself away, so he sends the Feng warriors ahead to see his abilities. Eugene claims that he is the smartest person here because of his reading skills. This makes Don laugh, who, after calming down, decides to clarify, since the interlocutor is so smart, why he is not yet an officer, but only cannon fodder. The same explains that it is difficult for a commoner to achieve heights in military affairs. The system is simple. The more enemies you kill, the faster you get promoted. Eugene will collect the heads of their enemies to get a reward. So Dawn will be their strength, and he will be their head. If they combine their powers, they will become invulnerable, and also get a faster promotion. The guy clarifies, so what does the hero think about the idea of forming an alliance? Then he notices that the other person is leaving. Eugene shouts after him, not knowing where he's gone. The hero explains that the guy will never learn a spiritual martial art, so he will only be a burden for him. Besides, he's not interested in titles or war. He needs to sort out his personal affairs. The interlocutor notices that the hero is very rude, because he speaks as if he is nothing, although he, at least, is a scientist. He says goodbye to the guy, then leaves. Eugene asks him to stop. Dawn tells me that he is going to the city of the moon spirit. The interlocutor thinks about it, then asks if this is the city that is at the peak of sunset, and why he should go there. The hero confirms that this is exactly the right city, and then asks if the interlocutor knows where this place is. Eugene points out that he knows astronomy and geography perfectly, so there is no place in the world that he doesn't know. But he makes a reservation that there are few people who know anything about this place, because a few hundred years ago this city turned into a pile of ruin. He believes that the scientist is lying, but Eugene assures him that he can't lie, because all that remains of this city is history. The hero recalls that when he saw Tupyon lie, he was already decomposed to the bone. To confirm his guess, Dawn decides to find out what year it is, according to the imperial calendar. The interlocutor replies that it is 805. It turns out that it's been 500 years since Yang Lai's death. Shujin and Xian Shenjai are already dead. After all, they couldn't have lived for 500 years. The hero thinks about what to do with his revenge, where to go and how it all could have happened. The hero clutches his head, not understanding why everything turned out this way. Then Eugene's hand falls on his shoulder. The guy asks what's wrong with him. Dawn also says that now he doesn't know where to go, or even what to do. He has a feeling that everything has lost its meaning. But the scientist notices that there is nothing to think about. In their time they should do something completely unimaginable. He asks the master of dark martial arts to put it out of his mind, because first they need to get out of this place. The hero specifies whether the friend offers to simply run away from the battlefield. Eugene explains that this battle is in Ning territory. The wrong time and place was chosen here, so if you don't run away, you can only wait for your fate. Yun and Ning have long been neighbors, so the war between them never stopped. Fights are being held for the eastern territory of the river. The eastern territory of the river has fertile soils and is rich in minerals. The territory is divided into Feng and Ning domains. Later, Ning had some problems and asked Feng for help. The ruler promised to give half of the land to Feng, but Feng gets the land to Ning. Because of this, Ning expresses his displeasure. As Ning deals with his problems, the country tries to reclaim its lands, but Feng is not going to give up anything. That's when the war between the two countries begins. During the battle, Ning and Feng occupy the eastern territory of the river. Both countries claim that the eastern lands are theirs. The losses are growing. It is already difficult to assess the situation. The hero decides to clarify the situation, whether all this is because of the eastern territories. Eugene points out that it would be nice if they took back the eastern territories. It's terrible that they've had so many battles this year. They've lost many times before, and he doesn't know when they'll be able to get their land back. Dawn understands that since the founding of Feng, the war has not stopped. The scientist says he never found out his name. The hero introduces himself as Tenjin. Eugene notes that if the interviewee stays in the army, then his abilities will be appreciated, and he can even become his patron. The hero decides to find out if he wants to make friends with him. Eugene replies that he can say so. In addition, he emphasizes that if the hero takes it with him, he cannot worry that someone will find out his secret. Tenjin makes a blot, saying that he won't worry if he kills him. Then the scientist declares that the guy will not do it. This confidence intrigues the hero a little, so he decides to find out where its origins come from. Eugene explains that if he kills him, he will lose someone who can give him a new idea, so he must understand how important it is to him now. The scientist notes that they can't stay here too long, which is why it's worth moving out right now. The hero still decides to find out where they are going. The scholar replies that they are going to Tongmen, because they will be safe if they go through it, because most of the warriors are there. The hero also recalls that Tongmen is one of the most important cities of Feng on the eastern front. Outside of Tongmen are the lands for which the war is being waged. Through the city stretches a plain, along which you can go to the capital of Feng, Yangcheng. He thinks that there is no reliable defensive position there. Eugene says that from his observations, he realized that the partner is a beginner in the spiritual martial art, so he decides to find out what level he has reached. The hero explains that he can barely move for the light of the spirit. Tenjin specifies how the interlocutor understood this. The scientist explains that everything is very simple. The dark fire he used is a lethal discharge. If he's not mistaken, this is the first level of dark fire. The hero notices that he has now realized that Eugene does not understand anything about this. This turns the other person on, and they decide to show their knowledge, considering it a second chance. Dark fire has 3 levels. Pervy, deadly burning. With it, he can burn down any opponent and collect 50% of their Reiki. The second is spiritual burning. With it, he can collect 100% of the Reiki. And the third is absolute burning. With it, he can incinerate everything in this world and collect the Reiki of all living creatures. But after the incident in the martial arts world, no one has reached the 3rd level yet. Even now, there is almost no one who practices dark fire, so it is surprising that this happened to the interlocutor. Eugene laughs, amazed at how smart he is. The hero notices something strange. Tenjin shuts up the other person's mouth, demanding to be quiet. He lays him down on the ground, saying that he feels a murderous urge. He walks forward, asking me to follow him. Here, a bald, beefy man appears from the bushes, who tries to take advantage of the surprise effect, attacking the hero in flight with a battle pole. The dark-haired man sends the attacker to the ground with one powerful blow. The same person understands that he has met exactly the person he was looking for. A crowd of young men jump out of the bushes, shouting the name of their leader. His name is Ola Jang. Tenjin decides to ask if they are from Feng. The leader of the group stops his men, saying that they are all from Feng. One of the subordinates asks if this is the guy who saved them all. He exhales calmly, realizing they're all on the same side of the fence. It turns out that all these soldiers said a lot about the hero. He's glad he's still alive. Eugene also notes that it is very good that they are on their side. Ola Jang approaches the hero, apologizing for his attack because he thought that he was from the Ning, who are chasing them. Tenjin notices that they don't look like they're running away from the chase, so he asks why they were hiding in the bushes instead. The leader explains that their people are exhausted, so they can't leave. Eugene states that if they don't want to die, they should go with brother Tenjin, because when the Ning get here, they will all die. These words amaze everyone, and the hero gets a little angry. Feeling this tense atmosphere, the scientist decides to explain to his friend that there is nothing wrong with the number, because the more they are, the safer it is. And if he leaves them alone, they will definitely die, because they are already barely standing on their feet. Tenjin is forced to agree to increase his group. Eugene then announces that his brother has agreed to take them with him. Merging with Yang Lai made Tenjin a ball and helped start a new life. This created a new legend for Feng. This story is just beginning. Eugene understands that they will hide here and wait until the Ning convoy passes, but he doesn't know how they will get the horses. The hero suggests simply stealing them. Ola Jang notices that this will be too dangerous, so you should think of something else. At this time, the horsemen of the enemy army gallop nearby, chasing the comrades of the Trinity. The leader of the group, seeing how his surviving comrades are killed, gets angry, but there is nothing he can do. Then a huge Ning soldier bursts into the crowd of Feng soldiers, who is practically unarmored. He uses a spear, which easily cuts off the limbs of enemies. Everyone is amazed at what they saw. Even Tenjin is a little tense from this. A unique fighter declares that all of them here must die. The surviving soldiers tremble in fear, falling off their feet in terror. A muscular enemy soldier raises his weapon to continue the carnage. Then one of the Feng soldiers starts sobbing, begging for someone to help them. Eugene urges his brother to be reasonable, because it will be too dangerous to interfere in this. But when he turns his head, the hero is no longer there. He notices that Tenjin has entered the battlefield again. With one powerful blow, he forced the bully to back away, but the muscle car did not fall and even struck back, from which the hero dodged. The rest of the Ning riders stopped to watch such an unusual fight. Eugene was chastising his teammates for missing the guy. At the same time, Tenjin stood in front of a huge warrior, who began to grin at the sight of a strong opponent. They began to slowly draw closer to each other. The hero realized that he had absorbed the spirit of the fallen soldiers, and then collected them in his weapons to release them. This is a bad sign, because he can only control the flow of energy so far, but this does not mean that Tenjin will give up. After dodging several attacks from the enemy, the guy inflicts a wound on him, asking if he has ever heard of a game of cat and mouse. The hero quickly realizes that the enemy does not understand him. The goon runs his hand over a shallow wound on his torso, and his leader orders the arrogant boy to be killed. However, there are twinkles in the giant's eyes. He orders everyone to stop, stating that none of them will pass to him because this is his opponent. This time, Tenjin attacks first. He throws a jump punch with his sword. The goon takes it on his spear. Their auras collide with each other, figuring out who is stronger. It doesn't last even a moment, because the guy realizes that he is inferior in brute force to the enemy, so he stops the collision, soaring into the sky. The enemy's attack goes into the milk, and he also steps on his head, sticking his sword right in the back. The hero does not linger on the enemy, because he is still combat ready. He jumps away from it in time, moves away from the point of the spear, and then hits the enemy's head in the fall. The sword goes into the head, but the helmet dampens most of the impact. The muscle car gets angry, grabbing the hero by the throat and starting to squeeze. A bloody cough escapes from the guy's mouth, and the enemy prepares to kill him. The hero declares that he will not die here. The sword gets stuck in the head of the bully, so he reaches out with his hand to the head of the opponent, wanting to devour him to the last drop. The hero's eyes turn red, and the iris turns black. It reaches the enemy, starting to envelop him in black flames. The opponent asks you to stop, knowing what is going on. In an instant, the body of a huge, muscular soldier disappears into Tenjin's hand. His mouth is steaming, and his eyes are filled with an unquenchable thirst for blood. The Ning riders are confused, not quite sure what to do. Eugene commands a squad of soldiers, announcing that the leader of the enemy army has been killed, which means that it's time to attack. They break into battle. The bald commander demands that no one is allowed to leave, because they need their heads to get a reward. A battle begins, in which soldiers in black armor immediately begin to crowd the enemies, who are confused by what is happening. They haven't let go of what they've seen yet. The hero notices that everything is very interesting. He stands there and doesn't interfere with the carnage, just laughing at the whole thing. The Ning soldiers begin to run away in a panic, but they are blocked by a bald commander who notices that they have nowhere to run. With a couple of swings, he takes the life of cowards. Eugene approaches the hero, who states that he thinks these are the people he was looking for. The scientist asks his brother to try not to do this again, because he risks his life. The hero also notes that this should not concern him at all. Eugene claims that this was the case before, but not now, because his life directly depends on his. So while they are alive, we must cling to every opportunity. Here the scientist stops abruptly. Tenjin explains that he knows what needs to be done. He emphasizes that he is not a complete idiot, and then clarifies why the interlocutor fell silent. Eugene also picks up a strange thing from the ground. Recognizing it as a clerk, this is the sign of the commander of 1,000 people in the ancient Greek army. Eugene starts to cry, because this is their first achievement. The hero notices that the reward gives a head, but they don't have his head. The interlocutor says that it's okay, because the soldiers' badges will also come off. Besides, there were a lot of witnesses. Tenjin notices that he now understands why he collected the tokens. The scientist claims that he will do it himself. He orders his subordinates to collect all the heads so that they can exchange them for a reward. Night falls. My friends send me a head. The hero decides to find out how many people they have. Eugene says a little over 100. He divided them into 4 groups with their temporary captains, making Tenjin their leader and himself his deputy. The hero decides to clarify whether they are going to Tongmin or not. The interlocutor gives a positive answer, but Tenjin notes that they will need a huge number of horses in this case. Eugene suggests we take our time. He believes that you should first move at the fastest speed, and only later try to get the horses along the way. After that, the scientist changes the subject, wanting to introduce him to the 4 temporary captains. 4 soldiers come out of the bushes, after which Eugene asks them to introduce themselves to their leader. Their names are Yuhua, Zhangbao, Liu, and Zhonghun. The scientist says that now they can go to bed, because tomorrow they will have a difficult road. The hero notices that it will rain tomorrow. The next morning comes, and as the hero said, it's raining outside. He points out that if they keep moving at the same pace, they won't get to Tongmen in not only 3, but 10 days. Eugene says they've been through quite a lot, and people are exhausted and need a break. The hero allows them to take a little breath. Then the scientist first falls on his back, saying that he has been waiting for these words for a very long time. The guy calls Zhangbao to him. The hero notes that as soon as they stop to rest for a period of more than 5 minutes, he must send a soldier to patrol the territory in order to notice the enemy within a mile radius. A man doesn't know what 5 minutes is. The guy explains that this is the time it takes to burn a stick of sandalwood. The subordinate accepts the order. Eugene notices that Brother Tang is going a little overboard. The hero approaches him, stating that Tom needs to remember something. He says that it is better to protect yourself once again than to die because of carelessness. The other person accepts these words. Then one of the scouts comes running, shouting that he has an urgent message. It turns out that the enemies are right at the front. Eugene marvels that they've been caught up in such a short time. Tenjin also specifies how many of them there are. The subordinate admits that they are too far away to say exactly how many troops they have, but they have horses. These words make the leader smile, because everything is going very well for them. He orders everyone to take their places and put everything away so that they don't leave anything behind. Everyone is hiding in the bushes. There is a small army of the enemy. Eugene, looking at them from the bushes, doesn't understand how he didn't see them. Tenjin drags him into the bushes, telling him to keep a low profile. Here the scientist asks to wait. He manages to make out the girl at the beginning of the army. This is a beauty with purple hair. Her name is Ons. It is important for the hero whether they belong to Feng or not. Eugene explains that Feng includes the 4 strongest families, Zhang, Dance, and Liang. The girl belongs to the dance family. The hero comes out of the bushes, ordering everyone to follow him. He approaches the rider. Eugene asks him to come to his senses, because he does not understand what his brother is up to. Tenjin asks the brothers to come out, because the riders are on their side. The rider who is approached by the hero understands that it is embroidered from Feng. He decides to find out who is in charge here, because he will go with him to their general. The scientist decides to clarify something to the hero. He asks not to anger the dance family, because she has great power. Tenjin says that Eugene will go with him, and Eugene notices that accompanying dance can save their lives. They walk out of the crowd and are greeted by a purple-haired beauty on a horse. It specifies which regiment they belong to. Eugene, realizing that they are the leaders of the Feng Dens, bows his head, declaring that it is an honor for him to see the two Dens generals. He notices that his brother is not kneeling. The girl decides to find out if these are his people. The hero understands that he is communicating with a woman. Eugene asks his brother to kneel in a whisper, but he doesn't, claiming that they are just ordinary Feng warriors, and he was just leading them. The interlocutor becomes interested in this, and she asks his name. The hero calls his name. His subordinates, who have bowed their knees, are surprised by what is happening. They are afraid that their leader will bring down the girl's anger on them. The same notes that he is an interesting guy. The leader laughs, then announces that starting today, Tenjin and his group of deserters will obey her. The hero does not like that she called his subordinates deserters. Eugene asks his brother to calm down. The scholar bows his head, saying that they have fought countless battles with the Ning along the way, killing hundreds of their soldiers, including Hillark. The last word surprises the girl. The guy holds out a token, asking the general to check it out. The leader carefully studies it, then offers to see the Daning, because in her opinion it is authentic. The second girl says that it belonged to Zhao Yang. She wonders if Eugene killed him. The latter says that it was not he who did it, but his brother, who is a master of spiritual arts. This surprises both girls. The first one decides to find out what his rank is. The hero claims that he is an ordinary soldier. The girl can't understand how he can remain an ordinary soldier when he is a master of spiritual arts. She assumes that he didn't even attend the admissions office. She finds this very suspicious, so she decides to find out what's on his mind. The girl activates the recognition spell. Tenjin's aura strikes her to the core. She says he's one of the Dark Masters. These words strain everyone present. The smile also disappears from the hero's face. As a child, Yang Lai was bullied by his peers who wanted to beat him to death. His beloved intervened in the case, who often tried to stop the beating. They always threatened him with death if he continued to practice the dark martial art. One of them noted that the light school belongs to the fire element, and the dark school belongs to the water element, so he is not a match for them. They were telling him to stop studying the dark arts and leave Rainview. The hero takes a fighting stance. The iris becomes black, and the eyes themselves take on a scarlet hue. Subordinates are encouraged to stop it. He understands that there are probably two light masters here, so to survive, he will have to kill both of them. The soldiers draw their swords. Their leader calls for protecting the generals, but the girl already declares that Tenjin is not their enemy. She turns to the guy, asking if he didn't want them to know that he was one of the Dark Masters. The girl asks if the guy visited the admissions office. He freezes, not understanding what is being said. Eugene steps forward, saying that it's true. He asks his brother to calm down, because now he will not have to hide his power. He asks Tenjin to just nod at everything. The girl notices that this is a very resourceful guy who quickly resolved the situation. She clarifies whether the hero would not like to become her Hillard of the Third Corps. This proposal raises many questions for the second general. This suggestion shocks Eugene. He immediately drops to one knee, thanking the girl for the offer. He asks Tenjin to do the same. The latter thanks you for the offer. The beauty also notices that he deserves all this, because killing Zhao Yang and saving the surviving squad is entirely his merit. But now they are in a difficult situation, so she will not be able to give him a squad of thousands of soldiers while he has to be content with his own.